Good afternoon, everyone. We're excited to be here with you today. We are starting this course with you from the Colby Olsen Learn, Earn, Achieve, and Dream Co-Lead program brought to you by the Colby Olsen Foundation. This will be week 1 addressing goal setting. But before we begin, I do want to acknowledge that we are in Tucson, Arizona right now on the ancestral lands of the Tana Atam people. And here in a second, we will be getting into our introductions for you all. So Doja Nakpago means Mirochobawia means Aoche. I just introduced myself to you in my native language. I am an enrolled member of the Mandan, Hidatsa, and Arikara Nation in North Dakota. I'm currently the Director of Student Services and Learning Support at the Office of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion on the Health Sciences campus at the University of Arizona, and I have my PhD in Education.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Yaat A, Shea Tiffany Sorrel Yunishia, Tapahan Nishle, Kintlachini Bashashin, Mai Deshkijni Dashache, Dotwe Glini Dashanale. Again, my name is Tiffany Sorrel, and I am a member of the Diné tribe, and I just introduced myself with my 4 clans. I am a learning specialist with the UA Health Sciences Office of Diversity and Inclusion. I have my PhD in higher education with a minor in American Indian Studies. A lot of my research focuses on the importance of maintaining your cultural identity within higher education as a form of resiliency in the academy. And I'm happy to be here today with you all.
Perfect. And so if you are with other peers or colleagues, this would be a great time to be able to introduce yourselves to others as well. So with that, we will be moving forward into our week 1. So week 1 is really focused on goal setting. So by the end of this session today, we really want you to come away having your own SMART goals identified and written down. You're going to have a deeper understanding of how to really be accountable to your goals and what that really means. Additionally, you'll be able to really see the bigger picture and how that connects with goal setting and how you're really going to accomplish those dreams. So with that, we always like to start with priorities. So the big thing is understanding those big rocks in your life. And that's really getting at what are those priorities, what are those things that are important to you, and how does that fit into this goal setting? And so throughout this course, you'll really be understanding more about yourself, more about what is important to you, and how that connects with some of these different sessions we'll be having each week. So today's is really going to be getting at what are those priorities for you? So this is a great time where you're going to watch this movie and it's going to identify your big rocks. So what we really want you to do after you're done watching the movie is sit there and write down what your big rocks are in life, what those priorities are for you in life. We'll be coming back to those as we move forward throughout the different goal setting slides.
There's a well-known story about a university professor who wanted to make a point about how we make the most of our time. The professor stood before his class with some items in front of him. When the class began, without speaking, he picked up a large, empty jar and proceeded to fill it with rocks about 2 inches in diameter. He then asked the students if the jar was full. They agreed that it was full. So the professor then picked up a box of pebbles and poured them into the jar. He shook the jar lightly and watched as the pebbles rolled into the open areas between the rocks. The professor then asked the students again if the jar was full. They chuckled and agreed that it was indeed full this time. The professor picked up a box of sand and poured it into the jar. The sand filled the remaining open areas of the jar. Now, said the professor, I want you to recognize that this jar signifies your life. The rocks are the truly important things, such as family, health, and relationships. If all else was lost and only the rocks remained, your life would still be meaningful. The pebbles are the other things that matter in your life, such as work or school. The sand signifies the remaining small stuff and material possessions. If you were to put sand into the jar first, there is no room for the rocks or the pebbles. The same can be applied to your lives. If you spend all your time and energy on the small stuff, you will never have room for the things that are truly important. Pay attention to the things in life that are critical to your happiness and well-being. Take time to look after your health, play with your children, go for a run, write a letter to your grandmother. There will always be time to go to work, clean the house, or watch TV. Take care of the rocks first, the things that really matter. Set your priorities. The rest is just pebbles and sand.
All right, so with that, you really were able to understand what those priorities are for you and what those big rocks are. Really, seeing that if you don't put those big rocks in the beginning of that process, you'll not be able to really fit those priorities in that long-term plan.
Yeah, and the important thing with the big rocks that you want to remember is the mental health that goes behind prioritizing the important things within your life. So for example, for me, some of my big rocks that I have are going to be my family. And for me, when I start planning out my schedule and my goals, I make sure that I incorporate all of these priorities within my schedule, and it really creates a reality for you, a realistic schedule, a realistic goal setting. And for example, my family, they usually host a family reunion every year, usually in the summertime. And so I always make it a priority for me to, in my schedule, outline those kinds of events. The same thing goes for my niece's birthday party. I go to that every year, so I always request that time. Another priority for me is I like to go to sporting events. I like to go to U of A basketball games and things like that, and so I make sure I make time to do those things that I like to do. Otherwise, if you're not doing things that you like, you're not going to be able to really focus on your goals. You're going to be tired and not focused and not as motivated to accomplish your goals if you're not taking care of yourself. And so that's why we show you this video, because your priorities, your big rocks, are going to be very important in your goal setting.
Most definitely. And I mean, when I think about my priorities, similar to what Dr. Sorrell was saying, I really see my family as a big priority, like my loved ones, my relationships. So especially with the current pandemic, making sure I'm nurturing my relationship with my wife to, we're not just going at each other. We're really trying to be healthy about it and make sure that we have our space and we're being very loving and nurturing during this time. And then additionally, like Dr. Sorrell was saying, the mental health. The big thing in anything in life is making sure that you're taking care of yourself before you can really take care of others. So for me, I've found that in my family system, I'm the eldest girl. And so for us, traditionally, that has a lot of cultural significance. Essentially, you are similar to a second mom. And so I find that I need to make sure I'm taking care of myself and my well-being so that I can be a good sister, auntie, a good relative, and that I can be a good wife. That's the big thing, is making sure I'm carving out time to run or meditate or, just enjoy my time at home with my plants or animals, fun things like that.
Yeah.
So with that, we do want to move forward and start getting into goal setting. So now that we've established those big rocks, you've written down on your piece of paper what those priorities are to you, we want to really start setting up what is goal setting. So you'll see here there are 3 different areas of goal setting. So your goals should enlighten different areas of your life. They should really highlight some of those strengths and areas you're wanting to grow in. They should be encouraging. They should want to motivate you to be better, do better, whatever goal you're working towards, it should really be an encouraging aspect of this process. And then it really should enable some of those future skill sets, those future bigger dreams, and really help implement some of those action plans that you're going to be doing to accomplish these different goals.
And I think the important thing that we also want to mention here as well is your goals are always going to be ongoing. They're always going to be changing and adapting to the new situations, and you're going to really need to really build your skills within self-advocacy. You want to be able to monitor how you're doing, how your goals are going, and we'll talk about that a little bit more, but that's going to be an important piece to know that this isn't set in stone. Once you do your goals, once you write your goals down, that is a first step essentially, and you're always going to be reevaluating and adapting it and changing it and growing with it. And so this isn't something that is just a one-time thing. This is something that is going to be with you for the long haul. So.
Most definitely. And so when we get into some of those goal methods, like Dr. Sorrell said, we'll really show you how you can establish goals and then reevaluate them as well, because life happens, and so we need to be able to adjust with that too. So some of the benefits of goal setting. So you'll see here we looked at different data on goal setting, and so for folks that are in the workforce, they found that goal setting improves worker performance of up to 15%. So really knowing what you're working towards, really having those objectives, you know, sitting down with your supervisor or sitting down with some of your mentors to say, my goal is XYZ, how do I really get there and how can I accomplish that in this position? Really having that outlined can really be effective for your performance in that position too. Additionally, you'll see that folks that do have goals within the work setting have greater output rates than those who did not, and they seem to be more ambitious and perform better. So again, it's really going back to those people really knowing what they're working towards and having that in mind as they're navigating those different spaces. Additionally, this last item here is really connecting with, like Dr. Sorrell was saying, people who have goals tend to have higher motivation, higher self-efficacy, confidence, and autonomy. So it really gets back to having an idea of what that bigger picture you're working towards is in life and being able to accomplish that and make those active steps to work towards that.
And it really does go back to that piece of self-advocacy where it's your own belief in your ability to succeed. And that's the space you want to be in, is having that own belief in yourself. And it's just going to be so beneficial within whatever you're doing, within school or even within work. You're going to grow so much being able to set goals and keep working up, climbing the ladder, and keep getting better and better and better.
Yeah, and I think it's really important in the work setting too that you have those in mind and you are clearly communicating that with your supervisor or your mentors. I know currently in my position, I came into this position fairly new within the workforce, an early professional after my PhD, and I was letting my supervisor know eventually I want to be at a director level, I want to be teaching, you know, I want to be doing these different things. And they were just so supportive of that, and they've really tried to help me connect with different opportunities and just have a lot of career development. And so I think in this goal setting process, it's really having that form of communication that will be really key. You really have to speak to what your goals are.
I have a similar experience to you as well. When I first graduated college and heading into my first job, my first real grown-up job, I feel like I would say, was with the Department of Economic Security. I worked for CPS, and I went in there not knowing, I feel like, a lot of stuff. And so having these goals to be able to work up to and get better really helped develop my skills. And also, like Eliza said, communicating that with your supervisors, your higher ups, like, don't be afraid to tell them what you want. And that way you get what you want and you get better and better. So, and I think that leads right into this ABC goal setting.
Yes, our methods. So we've been talking about the benefits of goals and what goals mean, but here are some actually tangible goal methods that you can apply. So there's a few here. So we'll get into these two and then get into an exercise we can all do together. So this first goal setting method is from Small in 2013. And this was really based on a goal process that was designed for athletes. So for this process, it's the ABC goal setting, and it really is saying, ask yourself these questions when you're thinking of your goals. Is this goal achievable, believable, and are you committed to it? So I know when Dr. Sorrell and I were practicing this, we were saying, oh, you know, what's a funny goal I could put? And I was like, well, my goal right now is I'm running, trying to keep myself healthy and just mentally strong. And so I said, for an athletic goal, I could say, oh, I want to run a faster mile. And then I was like, well, what does that mean? Like, I can't run a mile in a minute. Like, I'm not a cheetah, so I need to have it really be achievable. So I was like, okay, I want to run a 10-minute mile. For some folks, they're probably like, oh, 10 And then it's like, but that's me. Like, that's my goal right now. And then believable. The big thing with goals is you have to believe it. I can say, I want to run this 10-minute mile, but if in my back of my head, I'm like, Les, you can't do that. What are you thinking? It's not going to happen. So I really had to believe it. And then being committed. In all these goal setting methods, you'll see commitment is huge. I can't say I'm going to run a 10-minute mile and then just sit at home on my couch and eat chips and salsa. I actually had to get out and go and run and put my shoes on. So that's actually one thing my wife and I have been really good at supporting each other in, is she'll put on her shoes and say, okay, we're leaving. And so I am being very committed to that goal process. So this is one ABC method that seems to work for folks. It's not as specific as some of these other ones we'll get into here, but definitely it's kind of those broad strokes that you should be thinking about when you're setting up some of these goals.
Yeah, and I actually just started to learn the game of golf just recently. I'm not good, but one of my goals for that is to, I started off just doing half the course, which is 9 holes out of 18, and now I'm trying to work myself to do a full 18. And just like Eliza said, is it something achievable? I'm not trying to go pro or anything. That wouldn't be a very achievable goal, but telling myself I want to try and hit maybe 2 pars today if I can, or just trying and use my ball the whole time, if that makes sense. But I need to want to believe that in myself too. If I go out there already saying, I'm not good, I'm not going to do it, that's what's going to happen. And so, and also being committed, taking the time to go and actually practice these things, taking the time to actually work on, you know, your form and things like that. So I really do like this goal, especially the believable part, because you do have to believe in yourself first. So.
Most definitely, and bless your heart. My grandpa's been trying to teach me golf forever, and I think there's a point where he was just like, honey, just do what you're going to do. Like, he was showing me all these like fancy ways to hold the golf club, and I was like, okay, yeah, no. So good job, Tiffany. So our next goal method is the fast goal setting. So this is actually a newer goal setting method. It's from MIT, and it was really established in 2018, as you can see here. And so with this goal setting process, it is the acronym FAST. So frequently discussed, ambitious, specific, and transparent. So frequently discussed. I think I really love this part of the goal setting process. We always go back and forth about, like, you have to talk. Like, I'm a big believer in manifesting things. And so for me, I'm like, I am going to share this with folks and put it out in the universe and just put good energy and vibes into it and really make sure that I am telling everyone and their mama what my goals are. And so frequently discussed. And this really gets back to like what I was sharing earlier about if you're in that employment setting, or if you're a student, sharing these goals with your mentors, sharing these goals with your supervisors, that's going to be a really big part of having this be a successful process.
Yeah, and also, what I always tell students when they come in to talk to us is, if you can't say your goal out loud, then that is already like that's already going to be a problem. So you practicing saying it out loud, it's just gonna, like Eliza said, you're putting it out there into the universe, you're putting this manifestation out there. And so saying it out loud is going to be the first part. And then also it helps with accountability too, as you're talking with your aunt and your mom or uncles or family about these goals. It opens up the opportunity for them to, when next time you call them, how is your running going, or how is this going, how is that going? And so that's a form of accountability there, that as you're telling people your goals, it leaves the opportunity for them to ask you how you're doing with those goals. And so that's what I like about it too. So.
Most definitely. The second part of this is ambitious. So is this goal something that's ambitious for you? For me, my 10-minute mile is very ambitious. So I'm proud of that. Whereas Dr. Sorrell is a former collegiate athlete, so she might have a different goal. But 10 minutes is solid for me. I'm not going to say my goal is going to be like being an Olympic runner. I'm not there, but just getting in that 10-minute mile is going to be ambitious and something that I'm having to work towards. It's not, okay, Eliza, do a, I don't know, like a 15-minute mile. Given if you do a 15-minute mile, kudos to you, but just make sure this goal is ambitious for you and what you're working towards.
Yeah, so it's about setting the bar a little bit higher versus if you're already running, say, 15-minute mile, and that's not going to be ambitious. So you want to push yourself a little bit more.
Exactly. The other thing here is specific. So in all these goal setting methods, it's really important that you have that specific goal in mind. I could have said, oh, I just want to run faster, you know, and then that would make it so if I'm just running a little faster, it's not really ambitious. It's kind of just lackadaisical. So having, no, I want to run a 10-minute mile is very specific, something I'm working towards, something I know in my mind that I have to accomplish. And it really helps with that goal setting process.
Yes.
And then transparency, I think, is really good. This is like Dr. Sorrell was saying earlier about accountability. When you're transparent with your goals, that's when you're sharing it with folks, when you're having people hold you accountable to what those are, and you're being honest with yourself in that process. Life happens. So when you're doing these goal settings, it's not just going to be this upper trajectory, you know, up the mountain. They always have that meme about it. You know, the goal and the path to success, it can be a lot of loops and hoops and dips and rivers and yeah, like I always would tease during my PhD with some of my colleagues. I'd say, you know what, I fell in the PhD pit, and now I'm sitting here trying to climb my way back out. Yeah. And so it's not just that upward trajectory. So with that transparency really comes being honest about, yeah, I had some setbacks, but I'm still working towards this, and I'm having my peers or my colleagues, my mentors, whoever those people might be, help me stay accountable to what I'm working towards. So with this next part, in your materials that were provided for this course, you'll see there is a template for making a SMART goal. So a lot of folks have done SMART goals. You can see here, Duran in 1981 really established this goal setting method. And this goal setting method goes through these different acronyms. So specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timely. So with these SMART goals, it's a good system to follow when you're really starting to get into potentially creating some new goals, or maybe you really haven't done goal setting before. This would be a really good place to start. So with that, we have a template to follow your template.
Yes.
So think about your goals. I want you to write down on your paper, what is a goal I am working towards? What is a goal I have in mind? So here's some examples you'll see here. For one person, they're in a chemistry class and they want to have a B by the end of the semester. Another person wants to get a new job by the end of the year. Somebody else is wanting to have the ability to volunteer 5 extra hours before Christmas. So these goals are very specific. They have something to measure upon. It's attainable for them. They know what they're working towards, and it's time-based. That's huge to have that time-based goal. And so I know Dr. Sorrell has a goal that she's been working at.
Yes, so for me, going through this SMART goal template, my main goal that I want to accomplish is going to be finishing my dissertation edits by October 22nd. And so it is very specific because I know exactly when it needs to get done, and I know exactly what needs to be completed. And with that, I can even break it down further into weeks and have specific goals for maybe each week on what part of my dissertation edits that I need to have complete. Measurable, so being able to track my progress through this process is going to be huge. And part of that accountability is going to be getting myself into a writing group. And so the important part with the writing group is that accountability piece again. We meet every 2 weeks, and I always need to have something completed every time I see them. And so attainable, is it something that I can see myself doing? And I believe yes, because it would be different if I was trying to say maybe complete my whole dissertation within this time frame. That's not going to be attainable for me. These are just edits. The dissertation's already complete. I just need to tweak it a little bit. And then it's relevant to exactly my career, my life, everything that I do. I'm very passionate about student success. I'm a learning specialist, so it is very relevant to my job. And then, like I said, Eliza mentioned time-based. Do I have enough time to complete everything? And so like I said, I broke it down by weeks, and I believe that it is going to be enough time to complete these edits. And so that's one example that I have.
Yeah, and I think with these SMART goals, with any of these goal setting methods, there's also what we mentioned earlier with the reevaluating and revisiting your goals. So sometimes you'll see some templates and it'll be like SMART-er with like a R at the end. So that you really have to reassess and say, where am I at in this goal setting process? So like if we look at the student who's working towards getting a B in their chemistry class, they do have a specific goal. They want the B by the end of the semester. It's measurable because they can see the progress throughout the semester as they're getting their tests, their homeworks, whatever it might be back. It's attainable because they have a plan. They have an action plan to make this happen. It's relevant because they're a student. It's time bound because they know it's by the semester. But when it comes into reassessing it, that's where it's really that measurable piece that's important. You need to have benchmarks. So for this student specifically, if they get to midterm and they're still at, a D average, then they may need to reassess that plan to make sure that they're going to have a greater outcome, be it meeting with advisors or instructors, what have you.
Or even after that first test, and if it doesn't look so good, start reevaluating right then too.
Come meet with a learning specialist.
Yeah.
So this is one very popular method. You may have already actually done SMART goals yourself, but we really want you to take this time. You can pause this video, whatever you need to do to really put down what your goal is, because we're going to be referencing back to this for the rest of today's session. So make sure you have your goal written down. Make sure you have your priorities written down, because those things definitely coincide and will build off of each other as we move forward. So, time management. We're going to start transitioning into kind of the nitty-gritty of goal setting. We have these fabulous priorities. We have our goals written out. We're set. Now we actually have to start doing something about it. So that's where we get into time management. And so you'll see here, there is this extensive list based on this data of folks that are able to manage their time effectively and what that results in. So for people who do manage their time, they tend to be punctual, they're able to complete tasks, they have, the in-tray is completed, their emails are well in control. Working from home right now, I feel like sometimes my in-tray, kind of my to-do list, gets wild. But I definitely am trying to be very efficient in my time management to make sure my to-do list is getting ticked off and I'm making sure that these things are getting done. Life happens. I didn't anticipate a pandemic, but you got to roll with the punches. So there's where I'm at. You'll see that other times for folks who manage their time well, there's also these very good benefits of the mental health aspect. So folks that do manage their time tend to be more calm. They have more relaxed nature. They're able to really maintain a better mindset and have just greater healthier outcomes overall. So with all this, it culminates into folks being more successful.
Yeah, and time management is going to be so important for your goal setting because it allows you to see a map of where you're going essentially. And so for example, with my dissertation edits, if I wasn't mapping out what times I'm going to write or what times I'm going to meet with my writing group or all of those factors, and I'm not mapping out, my work schedule and all of these other things, then it's going to be that much harder for me to accomplish my goal, because then it could just get lost in the background. It could just be kind of put on the back burner. And so really kind of mapping out your time management, your schedule, all of those things are going to really be essential to your goal setting.
Exactly. Yeah, I definitely to stay organized, I live by my to-do list, which is connected with, you know, my larger picture of wanting to accomplish just this upward trajectory in my career. So you definitely have to work on those smaller items to get to that larger, bigger picture. So with that, there is the opposite side of time management. There are time wasters. So these are those fun little things that tend to get us off track on that little path of going up that mountain to our success. So I know I definitely fall into some of these time waster traps per se. I definitely can fall into procrastinating at times, something I'm working on, a personal goal of mine. But things that can pop up at work, or potentially if you are a student, kind of in that student life, is people coming into your dorm room or people coming into your office. I know I can tend to be a social butterfly at work, which will get me off some of those track on my to-do list. So I definitely try to make sure I do like little Pomodoros. If you're not familiar with what a Pomodoro is, it's a 20-minute period. I have like a little timer app on my phone. A 20-minute period where I'm just focused on that task. And then once I finish it, I can celebrate and I get a 5-minute break of just, I don't know, talking to someone or being on my phone or whatever have you. And then I just keep doing it, and I find that I'm more productive that way.
Yeah, that's a good strategy.
Yeah, my time wasters will just go on. I feel like I get distracted by being a social butterfly, or now I feel like since we're at home, I get distracted by my phone because that's my connection with folks. But
Yeah.
what are some of your time wasters?
I feel like already just looking at this, perfectionism is probably my biggest hurdle that I tend to, it tends to hold me back because I want everything to be perfect before I submit it. I mean, even within our colleague presentations, I was kind of struggling to get started because I'm like, I need it to be perfect before anybody sees it. But realizing, you know, that things do change, and that it's never going to be perfect. It's always going to be changing and growing. And same thing with my dissertation, my edits. I think that's why it took me a little bit longer, because I want it to be perfect. And so that's definitely one of mine. And also even being afraid of what people think, worried how people are going to interpret my work, especially within my writing groups. I get nervous when other people are reading my writing out loud, and I'm like, I hope it sounds good, I hope it sounds good. But those are things that you have to recognize about yourself. It goes all the way back to the beginning of our PowerPoint, that self-advocacy, and also even the realizing these things about yourself. So knowing this about myself, I know I can change it. Recognizing when I'm stopping because I'm worried it's going to be not perfect. Recognizing that, it really helps you to overcome some of those time wasters. And like Eliza said, being at home is tough. I have my dog at home who I just, you know, want to cuddle with all the time. And then dishes that I feel like just need to be washed right now. So recognizing that about yourself will help you to overcome some of these time wasters. So yeah.
Almost definitely. I feel like being able to recognize it will help you accomplish those goals. It will. I know we all are adapting to kind of new circumstances during this pandemic. Being at home for sure, like Dr. Soul said, I have a bunch of animals too, so I love spending time with them. And then my wife likes to pop in every now and then, so then we just end up talking, and then time
You need
flies
one of those
by.
signs, the sign that says, please don't talk to me.
I do. I just need like a little, like, I'm clocked in right now, we can't talk. But definitely recognizing these will help you be able to manage your time more effectively and long-term accomplish those goals. So with that, because we all have some different, a different relationship with procrastination, this is an opportunity for you to actually take an assessment. So in this slide, if you click on the image there, it will take you to a assessment that really has you identify on this spectrum of procrastination kind of where you fall. So with that, I know I tend to be, especially when I was in college, I was like a chronic procrastinator. And so I'll get into what that means here soon. But I definitely would put things off till last minute. I would wait till those deadlines were right there. And then I'd pull all-nighters and have a bunch of coffee or caffeine and just make it happen. I don't know how I did it, but I did it. It wasn't always pretty, but I made it happen. So since, that time, obviously I'm a professional now, I have really made it my mission to work on that and just be more proactive instead of reactive. So with this really helps you just kind of see where you're at. Procrastination isn't bad. It's just something that we need to kind of manage and learn to work through so we can really accomplish some of those goals we have in life.
Yeah, and the thing to remember about procrastination, it can be a cycle because if you put off work, your homework, say you wait till the day before to go ahead and submit it, and you do good, say you get an A or a B on the assignment, that's just kind of reinforcing you that, oh, I can do it. I can just wait till the last day, and I got an A or B last time, so it should be okay. And so recognizing that it is a cycle that needs to be broken, because otherwise you're going to be stressed every single time that you have to do that. So yeah, I think this assessment will be really helpful to kind of just give you an idea of where you land, and so that way you can make adjustments if needed.
Most definitely. And like Dr. Soul said, I was that student in college. That was me. And then I got to my master's and I said, oh my gosh, I can't do this anymore. So definitely it can be a cycle that we fall into, but there are tips and tools to help you through that. So there are learning specialists, there are mentors, there are folks that really can empathize and have strategies for you. For me, it became just being very organized and following my to-do list, doing my Pomodoros, having those timelines. Yeah. But I feel like with this slide, you'll see it starts to talk about those chronic procrastinators that I mentioned earlier. So actually 1 in 5 people in America are considered chronic procrastinators. So you're probably asking yourself, what's a chronic procrastinator? You keep saying this. So a chronic procrastinator is someone that really has perpetual problems finishing tasks. It may be, situational, but it really is the task itself that's having that issue there for that person. And so what we really want to get at within this is emphasizing that for folks that really do have an issue with procrastination, it could be something deeper going on. It could be something else that, you might want to look into. And one thing, I always heard a lot is just get it done. Just do it. Like, Eliza, what are you doing? Just get it done. Just do it. And I like the quote here by Ferrari study in 2010, where they say, as I tell people, to tell the chronic procrastinator to just do it would be like saying to a clinically depressed person, cheer up. And so really take that in. If you find that you're somebody that really just has a hard time getting some tasks done, this might be a time where you really just kind of do that assessment, assess some of the different tasks and items you've had in your life, and think, you know what, maybe I should talk to someone. Maybe there is a specialist or somebody I can see. And that doesn't mean anything is wrong. It's just a process of being able to find tools and strategies to really help you be successful, to be able to really accomplish those big dreams you have. Thinking back to those SMART goals. If there's just some tools and tips we need to tweak that, to make it so you're 100%, let's do it. Let's find somebody we can talk with, and let's make sure that we are 100% as we move forward towards those goals. For sure.
Yeah, and I really like the idea of normalizing, therapy and counselors and things like that, because for me, that is something that I have struggled with, was the anxiety of that perfectionism, or anxiety of all these tasks, and being able to talk to someone about it makes it that much easier to overcome, and then it makes that much. They give you tools to attack your tasks in a more structured way, and so you're not stuck in this cycle all the time with this chronic procrastination. So
exactly, yeah. I feel like I'm somebody who's seen counselors throughout my whole life for different reasons, And I love it because I have a toolbox. I'm like, cool, this is happening. What tool do I have for this? This is happening. Oh, I got this one. It's pink and shiny. I love it. So there are so many different strategies and tips. And so like Dr. Sorrell said, being able to normalize this process, we're all human, kind of just understanding we each are going to have our fun toolboxes are going to be full of all of our strategies and all of these different tools, and just really owning that and making it our own. So with that, we are going to explore a procrastinator's mind. You could just put Eliza's mind. So with this is a really fun video. It's a TED Talk. I love TED Talks. And so you'll see here in this video, you get to meet these different characters or players of this procrastinator's mind. And so you have the rational decision maker, and so their analogies, you're in this little ship, so the rational decision makers, you know, driving the ship. And then you have this instant gratification monkey, which
Takes control of the ship.
takes control or tries to make the ship go left and right and backwards. And then you have the panic monster, which is a very fun player, that comes in when the deadline's there. Oh my goodness, we have to go meet Colby tomorrow. We need to get this ready. Panic monster. So these are different players that you'll see in a procrastinator's mind. So this video really gets into what those different roles are and how that really plays out into these bigger goals in life you may have, and how you're managing your time, and how sometimes procrastination can be hindering to that.
Yes, I really like this video. I totally relate to it.
One thing at the end of the video that I know I was kind of freaked out after I watched it was they show this like large map on this huge TED Talk screen, and each little box on this map is a week of your life. And they show it for somebody who's going to live to be like 90 years old. And they were saying how, you know, however old you are, you've already used a lot of these boxes up. And how many of these boxes have you used up on procrastinating? And I was like, oh my goodness, my boxes. Like, so it really gets to the point that I hope we're making across as well, is we only have so many boxes. We only have so many weeks. And so really, as we think of these bigger pictures and as we manifest these amazing SMART goals and these amazing dreams that y'all just did, we need to be living intentionally and acting in these moments.
Yes.
So that's what I really took from this video.
Cue video.
Cue video.
So in college, I was a government major, which means I had to write a lot of papers. Now, when a normal student writes a paper, they might spread the work out a little like this. So, you know, you get started maybe a little slowly, but you get enough done in the first week that with some heavier days later on, everything gets done and things stay civil. And I would want to do that like that. That would be the plan. I would have it all ready to go, but then actually the paper would come along, and then I would kind of do this. And that would happen every single paper. But then came my 90-page senior thesis, a paper you're supposed to spend a year on. I knew for a paper like that, my normal workflow was not an option. It was way too big a project. So I planned things out, and I decided I kind of had to go something like this. This is how the year would go. So I'd start off light, and I'd bump it up in the middle months. And then at the end, I would kick it up into high gear. It's just like a little staircase. How hard could it be to just walk up the stairs? No big deal, right? But then, funniest thing happened. Those first few months, they came and went, and I couldn't quite do stuff. So we had an awesome new revised plan. But then those middle months actually went by, and I didn't really write words. And so we were here. And then 2 months turned into 1 month, which turned into 2 weeks. And one day I woke up with 3 days until the deadline, still not having written a word. And so I did the only thing I could. I wrote 90 pages over 72 hours, pulling not one but 2 all-nighters. Humans are not supposed to pull 2 all-nighters. Sprinted across campus, dove in slow motion, and got it in just at the deadline. I thought that was the end of everything. But a week later, I get a call. And it's the school. And they say, "Is this Tim Urban?" And I say, "Yeah." And they say, "We need to talk about your thesis." And I say, "Okay." And they say, "It's the best one we've ever seen." That did not happen. It was a very, very bad thesis. I just wanted to enjoy that one moment when all of you thought, "This guy is amazing." No, it was very, very bad. Anyway, today I'm a writer, blogger guy. I write the blog Wait, But Why? And a couple of years ago, I decided to write about procrastination. My behaviors always perplexed the non-procrastinators around me, and I wanted to explain to the non-procrastinators of the world what goes on in the heads of procrastinators and why we are the way we are. Now, I had a hypothesis that the brains of procrastinators were actually different than the brains of other people. And to test this, I found an MRI lab that actually let me scan both my brain and the brain of a proven non-procrastinator, so I could compare them, and I actually brought them here to show you today, and I want you to take a look carefully to see if you can notice a difference. And I know that if you're not a trained brain expert, it's not that obvious, but just take a look, okay? So here's the brain of a non-procrastinator. Now, here's my brain. There is a difference. Both brains have a rational decision maker in them, but the procrastinator's brain also has an instant gratification monkey. Now, what does this mean for the procrastinator? Well, it means everything's fine until this happens. So the rational decision maker will make the rational decision to do something productive, but the monkey doesn't like that plan. So he actually takes the wheel and he says, "Actually, let's read the entire Wikipedia page of the Nancy Kerrigan-Tanya Harding scandal because I just remembered that happened." Then we're going to go over to the fridge. We're going to see if there's anything new in there since 10 minutes ago. After that, we're going to go on a YouTube spiral that starts with videos of Richard Feynman talking about magnets and ends much, much later with us watching interviews with Justin Bieber's mom. All of that's going to take a while, so we're not going to really have room on the schedule for any work today. Sorry. Now, what is going on here? The instant gratification monkey does not seem like a guy you want behind the wheel. He lives entirely in the present moment. He has no memory of the past, no knowledge of the future, and he only cares about two things: easy and fun. Now, in the animal world, that works fine. If you're a dog and you spend your whole life doing nothing other than easy and fun things, you're a huge success. And to the monkey, humans are just another animal species. He has to keep well slept, well fed, and propagating into the next generation, which in tribal times might have worked okay. But if you haven't noticed, now we're not in tribal times. We're in an advanced civilization, and the monkey does not know what that is, which is why we have another guy in our brain, the rational decision maker, who gives us the ability to do things no other animal can do. We can visualize the future. We can see the big picture. We can make long-term plans. And he wants to take all of that into account, and he wants to just have us do whatever makes sense to be doing right now. Now, sometimes it makes sense to be doing things that are easy and fun, like when you're having dinner or going to bed or enjoying well-earned leisure time. That's why there's an overlap. Sometimes they agree. But other times, it makes much more sense to be doing things that are harder and less pleasant for the sake of the big picture, and that's when we have a conflict. And for the procrastinator, that conflict tends to end a certain way every time, leaving him spending a lot of time in this orange zone, an easy and fun place that's entirely out of the make sense circle. I call it the dark playground. Now, the dark playground is a place that all of you procrastinators out there know very well. It's where leisure activities happen at times when leisure activities are not supposed to be happening. The fun you have in the dark playground isn't actually fun because it's completely unearned, and the air is filled with guilt, dread, anxiety, self-hatred, all those good procrastinator feelings. And the question is, in this situation, with the monkey behind the wheel, how does the procrastinator ever get himself over here to this blue zone, a less pleasant place, but where really important things happen? Well, it turns out that the procrastinator has a guardian angel, someone who's always looking down on him and watching over him in his darkest moments, someone called the panic monster. Now, the panic monster is dormant most of the time, but he suddenly wakes up anytime a deadline gets too close or there's danger of public embarrassment, a career disaster, or some other scary consequence. And importantly, he's the only thing that the monkey is terrified of. Now, he became very relevant in my life pretty recently because the people of TED reached out to me about 6 months ago and invited me to do a TED Talk. Now, of course, I said yes. It's always been a dream of mine to have done a TED Talk in the past. But in the middle of all this excitement, the rational decision maker seemed to have something else on his mind. He was saying, are we clear on what we just accepted? Do we get what's going to be now happening one day in the future? We need to sit down and work on this right now. And the monkey said, totally agree, but also let's just open Google Earth and let's zoom into the bottom of India, like 200 feet above the ground, and we're going to scroll up for 2.5 hours till we get to the top of the country so we can get a better feel for India. So that's what we did that day. As 6 months turned into 4, and then 2, and then 1, the people of TED decided to release the speakers. And I opened up the website, and there was my face staring right back at me, and guess who woke up? So the panic monster starts losing his mind, and a few seconds later, the whole system's in mayhem. And the monkey, who, remember, he's terrified of the panic monster, boom, he's up the tree. And finally, the rational decision maker can take the wheel and I can start working on the talk. Now, the panic monster explains all kinds of pretty insane procrastinated behavior, like how someone like me could spend 2 weeks unable to start the opening sentence of a paper and then miraculously find the unbelievable work ethic to stay up all night and write 8 pages. And this entire situation with the 3 characters, this is the procrastinator's system. It's not pretty, but in the end, it works. And this is what I decided to write about on the blog just a couple years ago. Now, when I did, I was amazed by the response. Literally thousands of emails came in from all different kinds of people, from all over the world, doing all different kinds of things. These were people who were nurses and bankers and painters and engineers and lots of PhD students. And they were all writing saying the same thing. I have this problem too. But what struck me was the contrast between the light tone of the post and the heaviness of these emails. These people were writing with intense frustration about what procrastination had done to their lives, about what this monkey had done to them. And I thought about this, and I said, if the procrastinator system works, then what's going on? Why are all these people in such a dark place? Well, turns out that there's 2 kinds of procrastination. Everything I've talked about today, the examples I've given, they all have deadlines. And when there's deadlines, the effects of procrastination are contained to the short term because the panic monster gets involved. But there's a second kind of procrastination that happens in situations when there is no deadline. So if you want to have a career where you want to be a self-starter, something in the arts, something entrepreneurial, there's no deadlines on those things at first because nothing's happening at first, not until you've gone out and done the hard work to get some momentum, to get things going. There's also all kinds of important things outside of your career that don't involve any deadlines, like seeing your family or exercising and taking care of your health, working on your relationship or getting out of a relationship that isn't working. Now, if the procrastinator's only mechanism of doing these hard things is the panic monster, that's a problem because in all of these non-deadline situations, the panic monster doesn't show up. He has nothing to wake up for. So the effects of procrastination, they're not contained. They just extend outward forever. And it's this long-term kind of procrastination that's much less visible and much less talked about than the funnier, short-term, deadline-based kind. It's usually suffered quietly and privately. And it can be the source of a huge amount of long-term unhappiness and regrets. And I thought, that's why these people are emailing, and that's why they're in such a bad place. It's not that they're cramming for some project. It's that long-term procrastination has made them feel like a spectator at times in their own lives. The frustration was not that they couldn't achieve their dreams, it's that they weren't even able to start chasing them. So I read these emails and I had a little bit of an epiphany that I don't think non-procrastinators exist. That's right, I think all of you are procrastinators. Now, you might not all be a mess, like some of us, and some of you may have a healthy relationship with deadlines. But remember, the monkey's sneakiest trick is when the deadlines aren't there. Now, I want to show you one last thing. I call this a life calendar. That's one box for every week of a 90-year life. That's not that many boxes, especially since we've already used a bunch of those. So I think we need to all take a long, hard look at that calendar. And we need to think about what we're really procrastinating on, because everyone is procrastinating on something in life. We need to stay aware of the instant gratification monkey. That's a job for all of us. And because there's not that many boxes on there, it's a job that should probably start today. Well, maybe not today, but sometime soon. Thank you.
All right, so in our goal setting process, a big part of this is going to be motivation. And so we really need to start discussing what that looks like on this journey to accomplish our goals. So with this, we have this really cool diagram here that goes into priority schedule. So think back to what we put on that paper. What are your big rocks? What are those priorities? How is that going to tie into your SMART goals? And what does that look like in regards to this diagram? So with this, you'll really see if you have a priority and it's important to you, ideally, you'll have put it in the diagram on the far right, my right, where it says planning and long-term projects. This means that it's an important priority to you, but you've actually taken the time, you've mapped it out, just like your SMART goals, and it's not going to be urgent because you have a process, you have a plan, and you have something that you're following as a guide. If you put it off, then you get into the opposite side, which is important and urgent. This is where that panic monster is knocking on the door. They're going crazy. They're saying, hey, what's happening? We have these deadlines. And you really enter into crisis mode. This is where we want to really avoid. For folks that are in the professional setting, this might be those last minute projects that you put on the back burner and now that back burner is on fire. It might be the students who had that end of the semester final or the midterm that they just kept thinking, I can get to it, and now it's tomorrow. That's when you really enter into that priority, but it's in that urgent area.
It could be my dissertation edits where October 20th, I'm like panic mode. So I don't want to be there. I want to be in the long-term planning part of it.
Exactly. And so you see here at the bottom part of this diagram, when you have something that's not really a big priority, it can fall into some of these different areas. So it can fall into not being that important and not that urgent, which will really be some of those time wasters. It might fall into some of the busy work items, more tedious tasks, or it might be urgent but not that important. And so it's just something you kind of put off. It's not that essential, and you really don't find that motivation to do it versus when it is a priority to you.
And this reminds me even of my brother. He had to do some paperwork with the DMV, and we kept telling him, go, go, go. It was important, but it was like 2 weeks out before the deadline, so he put it in the not urgent portion of his brain, I guess, and by the time a day before he needed to go in, it was like crisis mode. And it was like, we told you because you know how the DMV is. It takes forever. There's all kinds of stuff and things going on that you want to take care of these things right away, and so you don't want to be you don't want to be in crisis too much. That's going to be not good for your health, your mental health, your emotional health, your physical health. Being in crisis all the time like that is not going to be good. So you really want to be within planning and stay there.
Most definitely. And I mean, even hearing Dr. Searle say that, I literally have this paperwork that's been on my fridge, trying to remind myself daily, I need to go to the DMV, get this done, but it hasn't happened. So I'm going to be ending up in that crisis mode like her brother, like running around with my panic monster. We're going to be dancing together. But now this makes me say, okay, you got to do it, Eliza.
Yeah.
You told Tiffany and the world essentially, so you got to get it done. So with that, this really just gets into motivation, what that means in regards to your goals, and how it really can be reflected in these different areas depending on if you have a good goal method in place. So part of goal setting really falls into that self-talk that you have going on in your head. My panic monster and I'm going to name him Bob. We like to talk a lot. And we'll go back and forth, and my procrastination monkey is dancing around, and we're just all having a ball, and we're not having the most positive self-talk. Because when that panic monster comes, my self-talk turns into, oh my gosh, Eliza, you did it again. Why can't you just get it together?
What's wrong with you?
What's
Why?
wrong with you? Why? All of it goes through my head. So with that, I've really had to learn to stop it. I'll say, halt, and really try to change that positive self-talk, or that self-talk into positive self-talk. So in this next slide here, we'll get into that. But first, y'all are gonna watch this video on positive self-talk. So you get to meet this amazing person and kind of see their journey through this process of positive self-talk. They've hit a point in their life where they're really down, they're really low, and how they really turn it around to make it into a positive and growing experience for them. So with that, take time, watch the video, and then we'll come back and really address how to have positive self-talk.
Mark, you got this. You rehearsed it. Let's have some fun. Optimal productivity, feeling good about yourself, getting unstuck. When it comes to these aspects of personal growth, most people don't tell you about the power of self-talk. Rather, they have you tap into some alter ego or, unfortunately, imagine a superhero, and that you're the superhero, complete with emerging powers and, of course, secret identity. Or still, they have you identify someone you look up to and simply channel their qualities onto you. I literally stumbled onto all three of these techniques a few years ago. I was in my late 30s and going through one wonky transition. My son Zach was just born. I was riding the ups, downs, and all arounds that come from co-parenting. I'd fallen out of love with both my doctoral program and an over decade-long career in higher education. I was in a funk. And if you're like me, when you become despondent, you put yourself in the role of a tragic victim, one where the universe does not have your back. You become so pessimistic things won't change, you simply throw up your arms in frustration. Even worse, you have these highly negative, harsh conversations with yourself, saying things to yourself you'd never say to another person. That victim-mindedness, that frustration, those negative conversations all reinforce a feedback loop that makes whatever funk you're in even funkier. Furthermore, for me, I was beginning to see myself in a negative light. But not only that, but I was seeing the world as a hostile place. I had become the most negative, positive psychologist in the land. In an effort to disrupt that loop, I did the most obvious, brilliant, commonsensical, middle-aged, new thing that any PhD with a new kid would do. I bought a pair of roller skates and tried out for the Atlanta men's roller derby crew. We got some middle-aged people up in the audience too with some brilliant ideas. And I was serious about it. I strolled into my first practice, prepped to disrupt the funk with my fresh new skates. Our team captain, DJ Jazzy Ref, introduced himself and said, what's your name? Mark? Mark, is that your derby name? Your roller derby name is a nickname that a skater gives themselves that's an extension of themselves. Nicknames like minivan driver. She uses her nickname to own her identity as a proud mother and one hard roller derby hitter. Or the great quadratic abrasion, who will forever be remembered with her doctorate in mathematics. So when DJ Jazzy Ref asked if Mark was my derby name, I paused, looked at my teammates, and said, I'm Manila Ice. And with that declaration, I concocted a superheroic alter ego who somehow channeled a one-hit wonder from the 90s. And boy, did that not do the trick for disruption. Within a week of my first practice, I was in an orthopedic surgeon's aptly named Dr. Payne examination room, waiting the diagnosis on an elbow injury. All the while, that negative inner self-talk chirped in my mind. How selfish! What kind of dad does this? You're a stupid idiot. Dr. Payne eventually returned with the results. Manila, you have what we call a triple threat. Your elbow is broken, dislocated, and hyperextended. Thanks for nothing, superheroes, alter egos, and one-hit wonders from the 90s. But the sobering truth was I was given a 5 to 10% chance of making any kind of recovery without surgery. Call it an early midlife crisis, or super macho machismo, or just plain stupidity. But I knew I could beat those odds. And I opted out of surgery and into intense physical therapy. Manila, if you're gonna do this, I need 150% effort from you, especially when things get uncomfortable and it feels like you're not making any progress. Deal. And with that said, me, myself, and Manila Ice in unison took the first step to ease on down Dr. Payne's yellow brick road in search of personal happiness, something to pop that funk, and a shiny new elbow. On that journey, I became obsessed with using legitimate positive psychology techniques to bring out the very best in me at a time I desperately needed to consistently show up as my very best. I needed more information on these superheroes, alter egos, and channeling, so I looked at what worked and what didn't. And ever since, I've become passionate about using this research to improve our lives. The first thing I discovered was this. There's an unspoken danger in using all three of these techniques. For example, when it comes to utilizing your alter ego, there's so much more involved than just summoning your second self. It entails self-awareness. It entails time, and sometimes therapy. The work of Carl Jung shows our alter egos reside in a much more shadowy, hidden part of our personalities and can be much more sinister than the amiable, idealized personas that some people claim we can easily access. Like Mr. Hyde to Dr. Jekyll or Sasha Fierce to Beyonce. The alter ego is more powerful, but comes with an explosive side. That's why it requires work when we're working with our alter ego for positive outcomes. Unfortunately, your secret alter ego won't suddenly emerge just because you read a self-help book. The other danger in channeling others or playing superheroes is these techniques don't value who you truly are. It's problematic because you can ostensibly act heroically, but if you don't believe that you're capable of being a hero, if you don't change that skewed internal representation of yourself, if you don't say to yourself and believe you are capable of the extraordinary, now have some fun. You'll experience imposter syndrome. In other words, everything can be going amazing around you, but you'll feel like a fraud on the inside. For a person of color or woman growing up in a predominantly white male society, all of this can be exponentially dangerous and internally damaging. The research spans across multiple disciplines. For example, research from the Netherlands found an interesting behavior in women with anorexia. As the women entered the lab, they would turn sideways, as if the doorway was too narrow for them, even though there was plenty of extra room. While we all have an external reality, such as weight and figure, it doesn't always sync up with our inner perception, such as self-image or body image. Essentially, what you see when you look in the mirror is not always what others see when they look at you. As a kid, I had a skewed view of my Filipino-American identity. I didn't see other Filipino-Americans in the government or the media. The ones I did see played up to a model minority myth or the perpetual foreigner stereotype. Seeing this shaped an overall negative perception of my own cultural identity, especially when I looked in the mirror and wished I was more like the other kids. So when Halloween rolled around, my sister and I chose characters who we believed could actually be the heroes, people who fit Audre Lorde's mythical norm: white, thin, male, young, heterosexual, Christian, financially secure. This feeling that your identity is somehow inferior to this mythical norm minimizes your strengths. Like two siblings on Halloween playing Batman and Robin. It's mimicry. It's copycatting and plagiarizing of another person's identity. Fictional or not, Halloween aside, on a daily basis, how can we truly be ourselves if we're constantly chasing other people's personas? If becoming a superhero isn't as simple as some claim, if alter egos don't have the desired effect that some want you to have, how can you actually reach peak performance, be authentically happy, and get unstuck? The key is in the art of self-talk. Now, some of you may be thinking, self-talk is equal to crazy talk, and that's because of the stigma that we put on mental health nowadays. But since we all do it, why not use self-talk to promote mental well-being rather than stigma? especially because there's 4 major benefits of self-talk. First, you create psychological distance, which allows you to make decisions more objectively while staying rooted in your true self and passions. It serves with emotional regulation. Emotional regulation widens your perspective and helps you see new opportunities. It increases your focus and motivation for peak performance. It's like having your own coach. Finally, self-talk changes the way you see the world, from hostile to hospitable. Given the benefits, here are 2 ways you can immediately incorporate self-talk into your life. First, embrace positive language. Ditch the negative language. I know it's difficult, but negative language completely distorts your inner self-image. Second, use your own name or the pronoun you when talking to yourself. Using your own name activates the self-distance mechanism. A study done by Ethan Cross looked at and had its subjects do a stressful task, namely giving a speech. He divided the subjects in 2 cohorts. The first cohort used I for self-talk preparation. I got this. The second cohort used you or their name in self-talk preparation. Mark, you got this. The cohort that used their names not only delivered better speeches, they also showed lower levels of post-performance shame and anxiety. Personally realizing the benefits of self-talk, me, myself, and Manila Ice used self-talk to beat the odds when it came to physical therapy. We used self-talk to make the Atlanta men's roller derby team. And, oh yeah. And earn the league's Rookie of the Year. But the hits don't stop there. We used self-talk to earn a spot on Team Philippines' National Roller Derby team in 2018. When the Team Philippines captain asked for my roller derby name, without pause, I said, I'm Mark Cordone. People notice these internal and external changes. After months of rigorous derby practices and consistently using the self-talk technique, one of my coaches, Surfer Rosa, pulled me aside and said, Manila, you are completely different now than when you first started with us. More than anything else, that was the defining moment of using the self-talk technique. Unlike other techniques, self-talk takes an inside-out approach rather than an outside-in, fake it till you make it, copycat some person you idolize approach. And this is critical for people like myself who don't always look like or fit with society's mythical norm and may have a skewed internal representation of themselves. We live in a world where you can mimic your favorite celebrity one moment and then play a superhero the next. Channeling idols, becoming alter egos, accessing alter egos. It all gets confusing. So much you sacrifice your self-image and cultural identity for superficial success. Through life's challenges, I choose to be this guy. And if I adopt a nickname or alter ego, it'll simply be an extension of myself, like Manila Ice with a splash of self-talk. I will remember who I am and use self-talk to reshape my inner world pushing beyond life's barriers and creating a personal revolution with grace and ease and joy. So no matter the context, when someone goes to shake my hand, they know it's me and not some facade or mimic who changes alter egos and secret identities at the drop of a hat. So when it comes to your optimal performance, when it comes to you feeling good about yourself, when it comes to you getting unstuck, what is it that you can tell yourself right now? Thank you.
So now that we are able to really hear how the person in the video is able to address their situation and their circumstance, we want to get into how you can really change some of those thoughts that go on in your head and really make them into a positive, affirming process that really will help you accomplish those long-term goals and that bigger vision and dream you have. So with this, you'll see there's some different steps here. So first, listen to what you're saying to yourself. So for me, it's like, oh, Eliza, you did it again. Like, when are you going to be able to get your act together? Kind of that negative self-talk, right? So then I'm going to go to step 2, and I'm going to challenge it. I'm going to say, well, you know what? I was able to accomplish X, Y, Z. I was able to get it done by the deadline. You know, really try to challenge, like, no, I am a good person. I'm doing good things. I'm slowly progressing towards my goals. Really try to challenge whatever negativity I'm putting on myself. And then the third part is kind of tied to what I just said in the second part, changing that self-talk. So really telling myself some of those positive affirmations, some of those positive things that are going to boost my confidence and really make it so I am very solid in what I'm going to be moving forward towards. So for me, I like to tell myself, like, you are doing amazing. You are, you know, bringing honor to your family. My dad would always tell me, I know, my dad always would tell me, Eliza, bring honor to our family. So that I always tell myself in my affirmation, like, you're bringing honor to your family. You are being a good ancestor. Like, you are doing these things for, you know, the greater good of your people. You're doing these things to work towards your goals, really having a lot of that positive affirmation. And so what I'm going to challenge you all to do right now is on your piece of paper, write an affirmation. If you're having a hard time with it, you know, borrow mine. You are amazing. That is something that can really help you throughout that day and really challenge some of those other self-talk that might be happening.
Yeah, I think this is just so important because when we get in that procrastination mindset or you get into that panic monster, that panic mode, it's so easy to get so down on yourself, and it's so easy to just go into this, you know, pit of like, oh my gosh, I'm so lazy, or I'm so this or that, and it's so easy to do that. And so I really like this 3 ways to talk about yourself because it changes that. And that's what I think about myself too. And your example with your cultural upbringing, to me, when I did my introduction here, I said my 4 clans. And in the Navajo tradition, our 4 clans are where you come from. Essentially, it's your 4 ways of being. And to me, that reminds me of, you know, the resiliency of my people, of my family, and that reminding myself that I do have that, and that you can make mistakes, but how are you going to change them, and how can you challenge yourself to talk more positively? And so I really like that.
Yes, so with this, look at your affirmations, look at those priorities you have written down, and look at that SMART goal. These are going to be part of those 3 core things that will really help manifest those different areas in your future. So we do want to close with some highlights today. So the big takeaways from today are to know your priorities in life. What are those big rocks? Look at your big rocks and speak life into them. Have those priorities be post it on your wall or on your laptop, on your phone, somewhere where you see them every day. And then dream and act on them. Go through that goal setting method and say, okay, what are my benchmarks? How do I know I'm making that progress? And what am I working towards? And share it. Share it with everyone under the moon. Say, you know what? My dream is to be an actor, to be a director, to be a doctor, to be whatever it is you want to be, and let people know so that you are putting it out in the universe and making that happen. And then really looking at the time. We talked a lot about time and where are your energies going? Because what we find is where you put your energies is really going to reflect in where you're progressing and working towards. So is it in those big rocks? Is it in those dreams? Really trying to rechannel it and make sure you're manifesting it in that direction.
It's like a garden, you know, where are you
Exactly.
putting that water? Where are you putting the sunlight for that garden? If there's one part of your garden that's looking a little dry, that's where you want to kind of pay attention to. So yeah, really reflect on what you have going on and see what's growing and see what needs a little bit more water.
I love that analogy. I have so many plants at home, so you might have a garden, like an indoor garden like me, that needs some like humidifiers, and you've got these diva plants that say they want a certain temperature, certain water. Oh my gosh. But at the end of it, really make sure you're tending to your garden. Make sure you really are putting that time, that energy into those priorities and those big rocks. So after each session, we do want to close with a motivational video. So I want y'all to watch this video. We'll have a few words after, and then we will be into our next session together.
Thank you.
All of you leaving here have the potential for enormous success. There's a price that comes with that. First and foremost, knowing who you are. Knowing who you are. Being able to answer this question, who am I? And what do I want? I'm asking the bigger question of who am I? Who am I really? And what do I want? I don't want to just be successful in the world. I don't want to just make a mark or have a legacy. The answer to that question for me is I want to fulfill the highest, truest expression of myself as a human being. You must have some kind of vision for your life. Even if you don't know the plan, you have to have a direction in which you choose to go. You want to be in the driver's seat of your own life, because if you're not, life will drive you. Knowing who you really are in this space and time that we embody. You must find a way to serve. Martin Luther King said that not everybody can be famous, but everybody can be great, because greatness is determined by service. Now, we live in a world where everybody wants to be famous and where we admire people for just being famous. We think being known brings us value. The truth is, all of that will fade in time. In 3 years, you won't be able to name the housewives of Atlanta. The real truth is that service and significance, service and the significance that you bring to your service is that which is lasting. When you shift the paradigm of whatever it is you choose to do to service, and you bring significance to that, success will, I promise you, follow you. Service and significance equals success. Here's the key. Learn from every mistake, because every experience, encounter, and particularly your mistakes are there to teach you and force you into being more of who you are. And then figure out what is the next right move. What is your true calling? What is your dharma? What is your purpose? All of you leaving here have the potential for enormous success. There's a price that comes with that. People don't always like you, and they're not always happy for you. And if you surround yourself with people who are not accustomed to your success, they become fearful, they become scared, because you are reflecting back something to them that they don't recognize. People who want the best for you want you to be your best. So my greatest advice to you is to surround yourself with people who are going to fill your cup until your cup runneth over. And what I know for sure is that the biggest choices begin and end with you, your internal big questions. Who do I want to be in the world? Be excellent. People notice. Let excellence be your brand. Everybody talks about building a brand. I never even knew what that was. When people say, you're a brand, I would say, no, I'm just Oprah. What I recognize now is that my choice to, in every way, in every example, in every experience, to do the right thing and the excellent thing is what has created the brand.
Like I said, we're just going to say a few last words. What I really love about this video is it really makes you think about what we're going to be moving forward towards. They mention branding. They mention emphasizing knowing who you are and having pride in that. And so really, over this next period before we meet again, I want you all to think about, who am I? What do I stand for? How does that connect back to my priorities, these dreams, and how am I manifesting that? So we're going to close with that, and we will come back again together next time.
Thank you all for being here with us today. I'm just so excited to be a part of this. A lot of these workshop series that we're going to be doing, these are all things that I wish that I knew when I was an undergrad, when I was going into the workforce, when I was essentially just growing. And so I just want to thank the Colby, Olsen Learn, Earn, and Achieve and Dream program sponsored by the Colby Olsen Foundation for allowing us to be here today. We are better together.